Hello guys and welcome back to the F1 Tube YouTube channel and welcome to my Japanese Grand Prix qualifying review. And in part 1 of F1's Super Sunday we got a frantic, unpredictable and chaotic qualifying session right from the get-go. And if you're wondering why my voice is quiet, basically I'm the only person in my house watching the F1 and therefore the rest of my family members are asleep, so I have to respect that. But in qualifying, Sebastian Vettel was on fire. He took a dominant pole position with 2 masterful laps really. Both of his runs in Q3 were absolutely on the edge and he annihilated all of the opposition. Charles Leclerc completes a Ferrari 1-2 with Mercedes locking out the second row with Bottas ahead of Hamilton. The Noah's Ark effect continues with an all Red Bull third row and an all McLaren fourth row. And on the fifth row we have Gasly and then Grosjean. Let's have a look at the lower half of the field and we have Giovinazzi in 11th with Stroll, Raikkonen and Kvyat following him. Then we have the 2 Renaults of Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, Perez, Russell, Magnussen and Kubica. Let's skip over to Ferrari and what a performance from Sebastian Vettel. Ever since Q3 began, he nailed it. Don't get me wrong, the Ferrari car was the quickest car in qualifying, but Vettel was just so calm and relaxed and delivered thoroughly. Charles Leclerc, he has struggled this weekend and I'm not surprised to see him being out-qualified by Seb for the first time in seemingly forever, but he's got a good chance of winning the race later this morning, referring to the UK. But let's move on to Mercedes, and in contrast to their race pace, they just didn't seem to hook it up in qualifying. They were not a match for Ferrari. Although 9 milliseconds was all that separated the Mercedes, I'm not surprised to see Bottas ahead of Hamilton. On one lap pace this weekend, Bottas has definitely had the edge. However, in my opinion, if there's not a Mercedes in the top 2 after the first lap, they will not win the race. Track position is hugely critical. Moving on to Red Bull now, and they were never going to out-qualify Ferrari or Mercedes. Those 2 teams just had way too much in hand over Red Bull. But interestingly enough, Verstappen and Albon set their fastest times to the exact same 1,000th of a second, so nothing to separate the 2 Red Bull drivers, and considering this is Albon's debut at Suzuka, he's done a stellar job. Once more, McLaren have proved their ascendancy in the midfield in 2019 because their opposition just crumbled. McLaren P7 with Sainz, P8 with Norris, nothing more to say, just brilliant again. I am hugely impressed with Pierre Gasly. He missed FP1 yet he still sticks it P9 on the grid. A brilliant performance from the Frenchman. He has had the upper hand on Kvyat all qualifying session. Gasly's just rooted to the track. Everything about his driving this weekend has just come at a premium with the Suzuka circuit. And with Kvyat P14, not a great performance, but he can retrieve it back in the race because in the races this year he does seem to do a lot better. Romain Grosjean got into Q3 and qualified P10, a decent job from the Haas driver. In fact, a brilliant job because he was their last hope in qualifying after Kevin Magnussen crashed out in Q1. He did get back to the pits, but the damage was done. Getting on the power through the last corner, Magnussen just lost the rear end and hit the barrier on the front end and rear wing. Despite not getting into Q3, Antonio Giovinazzi showing his worth once again, out-qualifying Kimi Raikkonen. Giovinazzi's improvement is so evident and clear that I'm so impressed by the Italian. In practice, it was not the case, but with the conditions in qualifying, it seemed to suit Giovinazzi more, but just take nothing away from the guy's performance. He has been doing the job for Alfa Romeo in the second half of the season and I'm thrilled by that matter. Racing Point, in practice they were doing really good but they just fell off the cliff when it came to the nitty gritty of qualifying. Sergio Perez knocked out in Q1, he set his last lap time on worn tyres. I don't know what Racing Point were doing really, apparently they were right on the edge so they took no risks, but Perez out of Q1. Stroll qualified P12 and if everything aligns for him, he could definitely score points. Despite bringing upgrades to this weekend's Grand Prix, it was a disaster for Renault in qualifying. Firstly, Danny Ric knocked out in Q1, and then in Q2, Nico Hülkenberg suffered a major hydraulics failure. He qualified P15, and compared to how McLaren performed, a dismal qualifying for Renault. And finally, Williams. The big talking point from Williams was Kubica's crash minutes into Q1. Basically, with the tailwind, he just struggled to keep it on the track through the final corner, understeering onto the grass, into the barrier, and that's all she wrote. And with Magnussen failing to register a lap, George Russell was effectively promoted up into P18, but along with Renault, I cannot see Williams scoring points. And that quote does not come at a surprise. But guys, that is it for today's qualifying review. I will hopefully be back in a few hours time for the race review, so please like this video, comment down below what you thought of qualifying, and please subscribe to the F1 Tube YouTube channel. But until next time guys, see you later.